How'd you like that? Sure.
What? We are live, and we are now debating whether we're going to move the letter Q in front of A in the alphabet because Quist comes first. That's damn straight. He's Dr. Ben. He's the one. He's the only. His loins are girded. His brain is loaded. His muscles are pumped. He's ready to go. Dr. Ben Quist.
Hi, Jack. How are you doing?
I've missed you, Ben.
I know it's been a couple of weeks now, right?
Yeah, yes. You went back out to Utah, you dog.
Yeah. Well, actually, Idaho this time. I went to Sun Valley. Yes, Sun Valley, the first ski resort ever created in the United States.
Why did you choose there, if you don't mind my asking?
It's a very historic ski resort, and it's also supposed to be, it's a really nice ski mountain. So it was great. Cool. It was a father-son trip. Other dads were taking their sons, so it was just a great hill to have like a family experience. So yeah, that was kind of why we ended up on that one.
Excellent. And you've been busy. You had the heart doctor over to Foreman Fitness to have a presentation. How did that go?
Really good. Yeah. So Dr. Josh Liberman, a private practice cardiologist from Mequon, delivered a talk on basically like heart scans and also kind of some preventative stuff. So we had about like 30 or 40 people there. So it was a good turnout. And yeah. So, in February was Heart Month, right? So that was it's important to keep those tickers healthy, keep them beating, keep the rhythm going, keep the blood flow happening,
Yep.
So.
Yep. All good.
Yeah.
So you're on a roll. I see you got some other guest speakers coming. I don't know what I'm just asking questions. I haven't let you really take charge yet, but that's what.
No, please. This is your show.
Go ahead.
Well, we've got Britta coming, who is a kind of like a private chef, and she's going to be talking about how food affects your mood and also like anti-inflammatory foods. I believe she's going to be talking about. She's going to have some samples. I have eaten her food before. She is private chefed for me, and she's amazing. So I'm just going there to eat the muffins.
Excellent.
She's bringing her magical muffins. So that'll be good.
Cool. And then Melanie Plant, who's she's a
nurse practitioner, right?
Yes, nurse practitioner. Yep. And I know Melanie well. She was in Track Attack way back in the day when you.
Yeah, totally. So she's speaking. We really should have had her speak already, but she's going to be speaking on issues revolving around women's health, menopause, pre-menopause, post-menopause, all those types of things. We've had a lot of people ask about that, having more speakers that had that kind of area of expertise, and there's no one better than Melanie to come in and deliver that. So I have a feeling she's going to get an enormous turnout. So like we're going to have to like break out one of the walls to
she's great. She's a pistol. I like her a lot. I just saw a headline today. Menopause is hot. So I mean, a lot of people are talking about it.
Yep. Menopause. I saw that too. I saw a headline. That's a fun play on words, but it's potentially a true thing, right? I mean,
you bet.
Dropping hormones, all that good stuff. And then I'm rounding out the speaker lineup, speaking in April at a day to be determined still, speaking on the inflammatory index of food. And I am fascinated with that particular index. How was it formed? What research did they do to actually justify creating this list of these foods are inflammatory, these foods aren't? It's just very interesting to me. So I'm going to be fully going into that concept because there couldn't be more disagreement on the ground in the nutritional world as to whether or not that index has
right.
Yeah, because like so for instance, like steak or processed meat is like at the top of the inflammatory index as being very inflammatory. But like, you'll talk to some other people who are paleo people that all they do is eat meat, so it's a really interesting. So I kind of know where I think it's going to go, but I'm going to be going over, 50 plus research studies, kind of just getting the gist of like, what does the research really say? How did they really form that? Is it bullshit? I just want to know. So like, I'm telling everyone that, all this stuff is inflammatory, it's anti-inflammatory. Like, is that really true? So that's what my talk's going to be on.
I will guarantee that Ben is not a presenter who is like this monotone. This is what we're going to learn about today. He gets fired up. There's no.
I got all kinds of special effects coming from my talk. I got all kinds of stuff. I'm excited. Trying some new things. So
you're like Dr. Ben and Mr. Hyde. I mean, you
totally.
get rolling, and man, that's it. You go crazy.
I just don't think if you're going to go up and speak in front of 40 or 50 or 100 or 1,000 people, you gotta put some energy into it. Just don't go up there and be like like a bump on a log. You gotta give them some energy. You gotta give them something, so
I'm a firm believer. It doesn't matter. You can have two people. They're there to listen. They're there to learn. Bring it.
Right? Yeah. Yep. No, totally. So
I have complete confidence you will. I know you will eat the right foods that day so that you won't be slacking at the end of the day. So you'll be ready to be revved up and ready to roll.
I'll be very anti-inflamed. Yes. Let's see what happens.
Very cool. What did you want to talk about today?
So I wanted to talk. This is a topic you and I have talked about before, but the YouTube episode that I filmed last week was also with Dr. Josh Liberman, the cardiologist, and it's a topic you and I have talked about in the past. But I spent an entire half hour interviewing Josh at his private practice in Mequon about this topic, which is the heart scan. So a heart scan or a calcium scan, sometimes it's called. And we have talked about this before. Mm-hmm. I have written emails about this, but I still feel like the message needs to get out there more. And so I got a chance to really question him on this. And so like what you're going to hear right now from me is not coming from Doctor of Physical Therapy, Benquist. This is coming from an actual cardiologist. Yep. And, everything that he said, appears to be very well borne out in science, so the heart scan is the number one non-invasive predictive test that will show you whether you have something to worry about as to whether you're going to have a heart attack or stroke. There is no better test than that. That's been put to bed. It's like, it's not even close, according to Josh, when you look at the research. And it's still fascinating to me that most people don't know what a heart scan is. I even like some general practitioner doctors I talk to are kind of like wishy-washy on it. Like, why should I do that? So let's just some context here. Okay.
Yeah.
So 800,000 people die of heart disease a year. So that is like the population of like South Dakota. So it is the number one killer by far. Like, you don't need to be scared of COVID. What you really should be scared about is heart attack and stroke. It is still killing tons of people, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Americans every single year, relentlessly. Many plucked from their middle age, like 40 something, 50 something, 60 something, man, dead, dead. We usually have about a 10-year later time frame, dead, like they die. So it is a terrifying illness. And if we could have a test that would tell you, like, hey, you have it or you don't. That is what a heart scan does. And so I am still in shock as to why we stick tubes up people's butts and do like the whole, GI doctor thing. Why are we even checking for colon cancer? 40,000 people die a year of that. And yes, that's awful and it's horrible. I don't want to minimize that, but that's a very invasive, very expensive test where we're not doing these heart scans on people, where it is non-invasive. It does not have a high radiation load to your body. It is not expensive. Why is it not the standard of care? So like that's what Josh and I talked about. It was a really fascinating conversation.
Ben, how is a heart scan done?
So basically you can get it at any major medical center, so it's like you go into one of those CT tubes. Mm-hmm. You don't even go all the way in. So if you're claustrophobic, they go into about like your neck, your head's still popped out. It takes like 5 minutes. You got to hold your breath like 2 or 3 times and then you're done. And then about 2 or 3 weeks later, you get the result in the mail. They're not injecting anything into your body. They're not putting a probe up your butt. They're not squishing your breasts in a vice. Like, they're not doing anything like that. It's like you don't have to fully undress at all. Like, you just had to put a hospital gown on the top and wear your pants, I think. So it is a very, very easy test to do. And again, I just keep asking, like, why is it not the standard of care? And some of the questions I asked Josh, which was really, really interesting. So if I was to ask you, Jack, and just pretend like you're the average American who hasn't heard me babble about heart scans a bunch, what would you say like are the indicators that you have to be worried about heart disease? There's like some blood tests usually that people come up with for this.
Like if you had high blood pressure?
Yeah.
Blood pressure. Yeah.
Well, high blood pressure would be one. Cholesterol is the one you usually hear. Mr. Henke, your cholesterol is kind of high here. We need to be concerned about this. And your LDLs are up a little bit, and your HDL ratio isn't quite where I'd like it with your triglycerides. Oh. Like the medical community gets in a big huff and puff over that stuff.
Right.
But in reality, one of the questions I asked Josh, and I really believe this to be true in what he answered, you could have awful cholesterol markers. You could have measures of inflammation that aren't good. You could have blood sugar that's out of control. You could have super high blood pressure. But if you get a 0 on a heart scan score, meaning you don't have any heart disease, your risk of a heart attack and stroke is incredibly low. It's incredibly low, even though you have all of the bad stuff. On the converse, you could have fantastic cholesterol. You could have I just naturally have a cholesterol reading of 150. And by the way, my HDLs are super high. My LDLs are low. I have no inflammation. My blood pressure is controlled. My blood sugars are controlled. If you have a high score on a heart scan, you still are very much so at risk of heart disease. So what marker should we be looking at based on that? Everybody should be looking to get a heart scan,
Right.
So, and again, I don't even know. Even when I was out at this trip in Idaho, one of my buddies, he's in his 40s, one of the dads on the trip, he got a heart scan and the score wasn't so hot. And he wasn't one of the people that I had talked to about it. I didn't know him that well. He was kind of a newer friend. And so he was very concerned. And there was another doctor that we had met out at a bar. We were talking to him, and my friend said, "Gosh, I got this high heart scan score. I'm concerned." And the doctor was kind of poo-pooing it, minimizing it. He's like, "Oh, well, I wouldn't worry too much about that. Well, how is your cholesterol?" Blah, blah, blah. And it's no, be concerned about that, please.
What did you say?
I didn't say anything, but I did pull my friend aside later and say, "Hey, you need to talk to a cardiologist, not to this guy."
Seriously, his fourth bourbon.
All of the advice was really, in my opinion, really, really bad. Let's minimize this guy that has more heart disease than 90% of his peers at his age. Let's minimize that when it's the number one cause of death. And many people, that does happen. People just die in their 40s. We all know people that's happened to.
What do you think, Ben? Is it because the heart scan is not complex enough or isn't sexy enough for the doctors? I mean, is there something to that? I mean, why would that be? I'm mystified as you are.
So I've asked a bunch of different doctors, and I've read many books on longevity and things where doctors have mentioned their thoughts on a heart scan. And then I talked to Josh. I asked him that question, and Josh really, he said it this way: there's a crisis of expertise in this country, and I totally agree with that statement. So here you got the cardiologists telling everyone they should be getting this test. And they are the heart doctors. Right. They are the guys that are on the ground saying who's dying, who's not dying, what's happening in their practices. Why are we not listening to these people? So it was really interesting. Josh had a fascinating answer on the YouTube episode. And his answer was, if we were to start scanning everybody at age 40 with this non-invasive, very safe test, it would identify so many individuals that had heart disease that there'd be this cascade of tests that would happen beyond that. Then there'd be this, then they'd want to do a stress test, which is expensive. Then they'd want to do a catheterization where it's an invasive test where they poke in there and look around in there. Then they might want to do a stent. It creates this cascade of procedures that could cost tens and tens of thousands of dollars. And his thought on it was that the insurance companies are poo-pooing it because they do not want that to happen. Which is totally cold and callous and awful. That was Josh's statement. I have a tendency to agree with him, but other doctors have said, if someone finds out they have bad heart disease, they are very unlikely to change their behavior. That is a huge baby cop-out. I cannot believe, and I've had 3 or 4 people tell me that, well, I found that it doesn't really change their behavior much when they find out they're close to death and they're only 49. That doesn't change their behavior. Nothing could be further from the truth in my experience or the people that I've seen who've had bad scans. Right. Especially when they're in middle age. No one wants to kick the bucket at 52 or 60 or whatever. So there's that argument. There's even been studies done on that show that people drastically change their behavior when they find out that they have advanced heart disease. They are more adherent to their medications. They make lifestyle changes and adjustments at a much higher rate than if it's just you have high cholesterol. So I think that argument is complete crap. I've heard some very intelligent doctors say that it's because the radiation load is too high. It's the same as a mammogram. so we're going to look for that and do it every single year, but you're not even do a heart scan once to determine whether someone has heart disease or not. Like, none of those arguments, if you are a thinking person, like make any sense whatsoever. So I think it's laziness. I think that the medical community is 20 years behind the science. And I think there is something to the insurance companies not wanting to cover it because they're worried it's going to create a financial issue.
All makes sense. It reminds me a bit, completely different, but similar in how it's being. When I was younger, nobody made a big deal about getting a colonoscopy. It was just like, you didn't hear about that. Then the word got out that this is a killer and this is terrible and that we shall do it. So pretty soon, every doctor's telling you when you reach 40, you should get it. And this is important stuff. And like you said, that's not a that's a procedure.
There's something to be said for a colonoscopy. Yeah, you're doing something there.
Right. So it's kind of, to me, it's kind of like that. Like all of a sudden, will the doctors catch up like they did to the colonoscopies and the colon cancer and prostate cancer and all that kind of good stuff?
Yeah, I sure hope so. I think there's been a teeny bit of a switch, but like I have gotten in like arguments and I don't even care anymore. Yeah, I'm a doctor of physical therapy and yeah, I'm not a medical doctor. I don't give a crap. If it's going to save someone's life, I will have a frank conversation with anyone about this stuff. I don't care. Like it's the right thing to do for most people. And that was another question I asked the cardiologist is like, okay, well, since medicine isn't putting it forth as a standard of testing at a certain point, when should somebody get a heart scan? That's an important question. Like, okay, like, well, when should I get it? So, he had said it depends based on your family history, what your other blood markers are, things like that. So if you have a bad family history, and have had multiple family members that have heart attacks in their 40s, you might want to get one as early as 35, but if you have like my family, most of the Quist men die in their 50s or 60s of heart disease, probably should have my first one at 40, and I had my first one at 45, so like 40, 45 was kind of the age range. Because you do start to see people dying of heart attacks in their 40s, and, it's a fascinating statistic that the first symptom of heart disease that many people have, Jack, is a heart attack. They had no idea they had heart disease. They had no idea. They just have a heart attack. And unfortunately, 10% of those heart attacks are fatal. So it's like for a certain group of them, their first symptom is death. So that's why this screening tool makes such a difference. Like people should be getting it done, and so anyways, I hope that people who are listening in your audience will push towards, mention it to their doctor. Many doctors are recommending it now. It is getting more mainstream where they're not pushing back against it. But if you do get pushed back, you might want to ask why. You might want to, why shouldn't I get this test? Isn't it the thing that I should be most worried about? So I don't know, or go to a different doctor, so.
Yeah. I remember hearing a speaker on, again, I'm going to go back to the colon cancer thing or the prostate cancer thing, hearing a doctor speak and someone said, what if your doctor says, you don't need that, you don't have to worry about that. And the guy said, I consider going to another doctor because
it's exactly,
it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
He said.
Yep.
So,
and that's for a procedure where, you only have the procedure. Actually, I believe it's 1 in 100,000 people die in that procedure. There's complications that can happen when you shove something up your backside, so, so believe me, I know, and I'm just kidding. But yeah, things can happen, so, it has some consequences, so yeah. And colon cancer, not to minimize it at all. It's a completely preventable cancer. It'd be awful to die of something you easily could have prevented with a screening test. But the same could be said 10 times over from heart disease. Like way more people are going to die of that. And many people that you can really control a lot of the risk factors for it if you know you have it and you start to do the right stuff.
That is something that heart disease is not subtle. It doesn't give you any warning signs for most people. The first thing is, unless they have a heart scan, their first hint could be a deadly hint.
Yeah, and it's the weird thing. Like all those blood markers or those tests or high blood pressure, those are surrogate markers, meaning they just indicate you might have a problem. We don't know for sure. Like they're not measuring the actual problem, So, and the only other way to measure heart disease to see it in reality would to do a catheterization. They have to go in there and look, or do much more invasive, more difficult, high radiation procedures. There's some of the high radiation procedures do look at that as well, but the heart scan is like the very safe, very easy one that you can do. And I think I did a bunch of them at St. Mary's, or was Ascension now. I think it was $49, to get it done. At the time I did it, you didn't need a doctor's script. I believe you do now, but I'm not certain on that. But, if anybody in your audience is in their 40s, 50s, 60s, really even your 70s, you've never had one of these done and you're curious about it, or you have a family member who had heart disease, it might be something to ask your doctor about and, get on the books to get one of these tests done.
Yeah. Well, as fate would have it, I have a doctor's appointment on Monday, a checkup. So I'm going to ask.
Have you not had one?
I have not had one.
Oh my God. How is that possible? I talked to you about this.
I know. I'm like, okay, I'm going. I'm just like everybody else. I'm like, yeah, I'll get to it. No, I'm going on Monday. I'm talking to the doctor. See, it took a while. You took your hammer out. You hit me over the head 23 times. It took 22 before I did it. Yeah. Because I don't know why. And I trusted my doctor. Just retired, and he was a great doctor, common sense guy. I really respected him. And I'm sure he would have given me the straight scoop on it. And I'm sure this doctor, my new one I'm seeing on Monday, I know personally, so I have no problem, no qualms about it. So yeah.
Well, most of them are fine with you getting one, and they'll write a script for it. I've only had a little bit of resistance. I had one doctor who just like, oh, you don't need it. He said to one of my clients, and like slapped him on the boy, you're healthy as a horse. Get out of here. And that guy died of a heart attack 6 months later.
No,
I still am pissed about that. I'm so angry about that, So, and I tried my best. I'm like, you should go in, even if he said not to. Like, let's get a different opinion. Like, and because he was a smoker, and that's one of the biggest risk factors for like every disease process, So
I've been cursed with a lot of things, but I've never been a habitual smoker or anything. I feel so lucky, because it seems like people who are just the addiction just seems to be so strong. It's just terrible. You can't even.
My mother-in-law just came back. I don't mean to smile at all. This is awful. She came back from the hospital, and she has like obstructive pulmonary disease from smoking for the last 40 years, and she's in her 70s. And so she came back, and she had her oxygen tank and everything. And like the first thing she did when she got home was light up a cigarette. It's just like, oh my God. And she was in the hospital for having low blood oxygen and issues related to not being able to breathe. And it's like, yeah, you're right. It seems like they can't stop even if they want to. It's
tough. It's a tough one. I'm just all right. Well, that's excellent. You brought it today, Ben. You made up for your ducking out for a couple of weeks with the passion you brought today. I have you have just like 2 more minutes? I want to ask you I want to ask you 2 food questions that I've been either reading about or thinking about, because my daughter and I have really been re-examining what we eat and doing things. Peanut butter. I know. What's your take on peanut butter? The reason I'm asking is I love it. I haven't had it in like 4 weeks now, and I saw the jar today, and I was like, damn, I love that stuff. And some people say it's okay, sometimes high protein, or other people say it's just terrible stuff. Get it out of your diet for good.
Why do they say it's terrible stuff?
So high in calories, high in fat, and everything.
So I mean, peanut butter, if it doesn't have added sugar, which some of them do, like a lot of them do, and if it doesn't have added oil, like there are some that they add other oil and crap to it. If it's just natural peanut butter, I have absolutely no problem with that. I think it, it actually is. It's high in protein. There's fiber. There's a bunch of different minerals in peanut butter. It's, if it's just ground up peanuts, it is a very minimally processed food. It is high calorie, but any of those, and peanut butter is a little bit higher in some of the better fats. It's not like it's like all saturated fat, or, like it's So I love peanut butter. I like to switch around though. I'll do almond butter or peanut butter, but the main rule is there has to be no added sugar, no added oils. You can find that in most.
Oh yeah.
Most stores.
Yeah, my favorite, as a matter of fact, is Smucker's. I know Smucker's is known for the jam and jellies, but they make their peanut butters are just salt and peanuts and water. I think that's it. So
I think like peanut butter is a great thing to do. Like I think dipping things in it, like carrots or putting it on a banana, or like versus making a sandwich out of it. Sometimes like let's get more vegetables and fruits involved in the peanut butter. We use it more like a hummus. Like my family does that a lot. So
okay, cool. So all right, the other one is potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
Now potatoes, it seems to me, potatoes are making a comeback for a while. They were like on the do not eat starch terrible thing list, but all of a sudden people are starting to say, there are some benefits. It's all in the preparation. So what's your take on potatoes?
I would agree with that. I would agree with there are some benefits all in the preparation. The biggest vegetables most Americans eat, unfortunately, are French fries and ketchup. So like that's by volume, that's what most people are eating for their vegetable intake. But potatoes are a great caloric, starchy carb if you want to have that in your kind of eating realm. The thing with it is I don't like to parse hairs on things like peanut butter or good, well-prepared potatoes when most people are having trouble with most Americans. 60% of the food that they eat is ultra refined. So highly processed, multiple different chemicals in the food, tons of refined sugar, tons of salt, still putting a little bit of trans fat in there, just as much as they can put just to get underneath the labeling, so, I'm worried about that war. I would never be like, Jack, you shouldn't eat potatoes or peanut butter. It's like, that is like, if everything else in your entire diet was perfect, then you could have a discussion like that. But like, and again, I don't think they're bad for you. Yeah. Potatoes are a pretty caloric, carbohydrate based, starchy, food, but they're a staple of many cultures, so yeah, I have no problem with it.
All right, cool. 2 for 2. Thanks, Ben. I'm looking up. I don't have to. I won't ever say the P word again. No pizza. I'm not saying pizza around here.
Yeah, I found one that's pretty good. My next YouTube episode, I'm doing advanced label reading, and I'm taking staples, so like bread, things that people have in their pantry. I take bread. I'm going to take soup, and I'm going to take pizza, which make you happy, and I'm going to show examples of how you can pick a healthy one based on advanced label reading. And I found a pizza that's actually pretty good for you.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I'll wait. I know you want to keep the suspense going. We got once that's out, we got to talk about it. So definitely.
Yes.
I love the advanced label reading. I like that a lot. I love that.
Yes. I have another layer to my label reading now that I think is really good. I think everybody should be doing advanced label reading on the foods that they're eating on a very repetitive basis. You should really look to make sure that food is something that's not going to harm you over time.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely. All right. Anything else?
Nope.
We talked about Margot and I are doing the Shamrock Shuffle next week.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah. I gotta find green beer. Do they have green beer? Is that a thing? Green beer?
I think some breweries do a limited amount, but mostly it's somebody puts a food dye in with the beer.
I gotta get like some kind of Irish beer or something. We have something on the Shamrock.
Yeah.
I'll be there. So I'll see you.
Excellent. Cool. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Ben. You really brought it today. Next week we'll go for 2 in a row. It'll be right before the St. Patrick's Day, so we can talk about Irish stuff too. Very cool.
Awesome.
All right. Cool. Well, thanks very much. Nice to have you back, and keep bringing it, Ben. You're doing a great job.